So, Mr. Brian Ray, such an absolute pleasure to chat with you. As I said there just before I hit the record button, that lovely smiley face, which is all the way through this record. I mean, my God, what a fun, happy record this is. You must have had an absolute blast putting this together.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. Good to be with you, man. But yeah, I mean, I think the reason I came up with the title, as simple as it is, My Town, is because it does sort of kind of broadcast West Coast optimism, with the big background vocals and the cheeky hooks and the topical lyrics,
Mm.
and I can't get it out of my I can't ignore my roots. It's part of who I am.
Yeah, it's beautiful to hear, and it really, really does come through. I mean, everything that you do, of course, is very personal, but these 10 tracks in particular feel, I mean, especially personal. Now, I know it took quite a few years for you to get this collection together. Before we talk about the personal aspects of the record, was this always the plan to make this into an actual compilation of an album, as My Town has ended up being, or were you always just, or initially were you just looking to drop a few tracks here and there?
Yeah, it's the latter. We really didn't have a plan. It was really just put out my first single, which was a song called Here for You.
Mm.
And, the label just wanted to get a feel for it. We didn't even commit to vinyl copies on that first single. We just put out a digital release. So this is the first time that first single on Wicked Cool Solo will be available anywhere other than digital. So yeah, and it was just sort of, it kept going along and one after another, and they kept ordering more. And the plan was to do two singles a year,
Mm.
vinyl, meaning that it would be a two-sided, so that would be four songs a year, which to me was a perfect sort of bite-sized amount of work that I could commit to, have it still feel fun and doable
Mm.
while I'm out there rocking out in my night job with Paul McCartney. So it needed to be something that could respect that Paul needed to be my work priority.
Mm.
And so that was perfect. And only, I don't know, a year and a half ago or sort of, they say, let's do a best of compilation. Who am I to argue, Jonathan?
Absolutely. Well, I'm delighted that you did, because it's a lovely way to sort of package these together, and it's 10 fantastic songs from start to finish. Jumping into some of my personal highlights so far, because I've been lucky enough to hear this ahead of release, of course, and like Pirate Radio just really stands out as one of the best on that track. Now that feels like that's got to be especially very personal to your roots with music and how you were first sort of inspired to be a musician and get out there in front of people. Can you talk a little bit about that track and what that means personally to you?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I mean, it truly is personal. It's sort of everything to who means everything to who I am and what my roots are,
Mm.
that I try to bring forward or that I can't hide from. That being that when I was about 6 or 7 years old, I was given the coolest gift. I think it was a Christmas gift. It could have been birthday. I don't really remember. It was a transistor radio. And now this is way before your time. It was about the same size as, say, like a Walkman.
Yeah, yeah.
Instead of playing cassettes, of course, it played radio stations. It played them poorly, and it played them like coming in and out of frequencies. And it had one wire attached to one earbud or a tiny little speaker. And I fucking loved this
Of
thing.
course.
And it was my new best friend. And I would bring it with me late at night when lights were supposed to be out at home in Glendale, California. And I would bring my transistor radio under the covers with me and just look around for a station. And I heard this outrageous DJ come on with this wild voice like this. And he had a signature on the radio that was, "Ow!" This crazy wolf call. And as a 7-year-old kid, your imagination now is on fire. And you're so in right off the top. And then on top of that, he was playing rhythm and blues, doo-wop,
Mm.
and some pop hits, but not a lot of the sort of prefabbed adult made pop, more roots music. He
Sure.
was definitely on that tip. You could feel that's what he wanted to play. And what it was a radio station blasting out of Tijuana, Mexico, that was a televangelist. I mean, an evangelist station
Okay.
during the day. And then at night, they took over. And
I love that. Some heaven and hell going on right there. I like that.
Exactly. Yeah, stick around for the saints. Yeah, tune in for the saints and stick around for the sinners.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I was listening to that, and it turned out to be this guy, Wolfman Jack, who would later become a huge fixture in radio and television in the US, maybe worldwide, made famous in some films as well, like American Graffiti. What this was, it was a pirate radio station, as I said, evangelist in the day and rock and soul at night, called XERB. And they would record the shows up here in Hollywood at Art Laboe's studio and stick them in a car and zoom down there and then broadcast them reel to reel from that station, where they had some crazy like 250,000 watts of power that would cut across half of the United States. It was this very powerful signal, and it was powerful music, and it definitely infected me.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and you can feel that right through the track. One thing, I mean, fantastic tones and all that throughout the whole record, but something just sticking on this track, one more thing. I love how you've been able to infuse as well, almost like a little bit of a Jeff Lynne kind of influence in it. It's almost like you're talking about that time, but you've got that nostalgic feel to the actual songwriting and the delivery as well. Was that something that just came out naturally, or were you crafting it in that form?
Later I thought, that does remind me of a little bit of an ELO track, and it had nothing to do with my writing for it. And whenever I notice that a song is going in a direction that's reminiscent of another song or style, I try to steer away from it. In this case, I just kept writing my song.
Oh, you got to lean into that. It's too good a song to.
You got to lean in.
Yeah.
And thank you for digging that. I guess, the song itself doesn't sort of characterize the roots that I'm talking about, but it doesn't really matter. It got to me in a way that gave me that song. And I remember writing that song while we were on the road. I was with Paul. We were in Panama City, and everyone was going to go to see the Panama Canal. And it called for like a 2-hour bus ride, and then probably 3 on the way back with traffic. And I said, you know what? I got a song on my mind. I stayed back and wrote this song. Brilliant. And I'm really glad I did.
Yeah. What was the first track you put together on the record?
The first song was Here For You, the one that I talked about a minute ago that was never committed to vinyl. They were probably just sussing out the viability.
Sure.
After that came out, did really well, got a lot of downloads and a lot of digital sales. They said, we made a mistake. That should have been on vinyl. We're going to go with vinyl with everything else. And that was it. That was a song I wrote for my son and his brother. He's now 13 years old. And it was just a song of hope and sort of imagery for a kid who was then, 6 years old, about this great big world out in front of him, and that it's all here for you.
Absolutely, yeah. That obviously appears quite early on the record, as as it should be, I guess, when you're sequencing something like this. But obviously, that's the challenge with sequence. You put together multiple records, and they're all created in a vacuum of time that's sort of capturing that. And you've worked with so many greats as well, where that's the same process. With this, it feels like, in some regard, the fact that they all fit together so well is kind of lucky in a sense. Was there any challenges in terms of sequencing the record? Because it's come out absolutely fantastic.
Oh, thanks so much. To be honest with you, I mean, I had some ideas, but this was wholly Stevie Van Zandt's sequencing.
Okay.
And his idea. It was his baby. I have been fortunate enough to be championed by that guy, who is just, I mean, he's such a great lover and fan of music, and sort of a library of knowledge on the history of music, just walking around in that big head of his. And he's a great A&R man too. On all of these songs, he would always have ideas. He would change intros. He would tell me I need to do some background vocals in the pre-chorus. He was always on it, calling me. And that's a little bit unusual in this time. Back in the day, your listeners and viewers might have heard of an A&R man, that's artist and repertoire, whose job at the label was to be a liaison between the label's interests, i.e. sell some music, and the artist, i.e., I want to sing my song. So they were there to help guide fashion, mold that artist so that both people were happy. And that job description a little bit missing in today's business model, and he is very much an old school A&R man. I'm very grateful for it. And it was his sequence.
Fantastic. Well, obviously, Stevie, he features there, of course, but you've got some other special guests, of course, on the record. Now, I'll let you do the spoilers here. Just talk us through some of the names that are on this fantastic record.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Well, okay. So, geez, when I was many years ago, I was about 31, and I wrote a song that became a big hit record for Smokey Robinson. And it's a song called One Heartbeat. Great long story that I won't get into right now about how that happened. Just suffice it to say it happened, and I'm very fortunate. It became a big hit on 3 formats, on pop, rhythm and blues, and adult contemporary charts, which is a bit of a hat trick. That's a lot. And then, all these years go by, and now Wicked Cool has come to me and said, we would like to hear you do a couple of sort of garage soul records.
Okay.
So a little bit sort of more with horns, more R&B feel, sort of like Mitch Ryder kind of a vibe, a little bit more like tough, but still garage. And if you can figure out what that means, you let me know. But the sort of the vibe of that label is garage rock. It's new versions of what became known as garage rock, mid-60s, largely American music influenced by the British invasion music, which of course was influenced by our rhythm and blues and rock and roll. So it was a game of cultural ping pong going across the sea back and forth. Anyway, so there I am being asked to do something more like garage soul. And I went, okay, great. That's not really my usual thing, but hey, I played in horn bands with Etta James and with several other people. So I'm interested in it. It sounds good. So then I start thinking, oh, it's fuzz guitars and horns. Okay. It's really beefy, juicy drums and sort of garage rock vocals like Eric Burdon, Mick Jagger, that kind of vibe vocally, but with proper horns, And so that led me to do my own version of my song that I wrote for Smokey Robinson called One Heartbeat. And as I was rounding the corner on this track, I said, well, the worst that could happen is he would say no. I'm going to call Smokey. And Smokey, of course, said emphatically, yes, I'd do anything for you. Came down to the studio and sang on One Heartbeat and sang on the B-side, which was my version of his The Tears of a Clown. And then that one, he took half of the lead vocals. And man, I mean, Smokey effing Robinson over there and just us in the studio with my engineer and his right-hand man, guy named Brian, who I really adore. And hey, we got it done. So that was one. That's a big one. Who else is on this record? We have Michael DeBar is on a song called Spellbreaker. He's a dear old friend of mine from many years ago, and he's a DJ on Little Steven's radio channel, The Underground Garage. And he and I had done some work over the years, and we started this song. And the song was going to be, sort of like a Screamin' Jay Hawkins kind of a thing, like put a spell on you vibe. And I love that sort of darkness and mystery and danger. And so he and I wrote that lyric together, and it came out really well. That's Spellbreaker. And he added some sort of harmonies and backgrounds and some flavor on that one. And then, who else is on the record? You remind me. You tell me.
Yeah. Well, you got members of Weezer on there. You got it really, people should just be checking out and enjoying it for what it is. But it's just nice when you got these additional names that are on there. Talking about one of the things in particular that's on there, of course, is some incredible instruments, which is something that you're never short of, Brian. But talk us a little bit about the gear that you used throughout the record.
Okay, well, I'm a vintage guitar and amp nut, so I'm kind of, I guess you would call me a gear nerd. Like I'm all the way in, but I've been collecting guitars and appreciating vintage guitars my whole, life since I was a teen involved with getting fascinated with music. So along the way, I've bought when I could a guitar, a bass, an amp, and suddenly they've kind of, they're taking over. And I also like selling them sometimes, but that gives me a lot of cool tools right at my reach. I have a few behind me on the wall right here. And that's my birth year Les Paul. That's a 60s Hofner bass. That's a Vox copy. And this is a very rare, beautiful Fender bass in a sonic blue color. So I have these beautiful vintage instruments that are very desirable, not only because of their collectability, because they have a sound that's different. Mm-hmm. So lots of that. I have a sitar, electric sitar on one. I play bass on some. I play all the guitars, sing a lot, I like,
of course, talking about, vintage instruments, of course, yeah, you've been a collector and a player of these for many, many years. But when you were first getting into what's now known as the kind of vintage market, that didn't exist. So what in the early 70s was the factor for you that made you feel like it's got to be a 58, a 59, like getting guitars from that era even then? Because people were kind of sleeping on them, weren't they?
Yeah, in the mid 70s, you could get what is known as a Sunburst Les Paul or a Flame Top Les Paul from 58, 59, or 60. You could pick up one of those for $1,500. And that was a lot then. It was like,
oh, yeah, my
crazy.
God. Yeah.
It's crazy. Of course, now that's worth a house, So I don't know. I wasn't doing it so much for an investment at the time. It was more just because I loved them and I saw that the old ones were better than the new ones. It's simple as that. They were handmade. They're made with a little more care and precision, but you could just feel that these artisans, these shop workers really loved what they were doing all across all the brands, Fender, Gibson, Gretsch, all of them,
And the first one was a Les Paul that you picked up, wasn't it? The initial 58.
Yeah, my first big vintage guitar was a 1957 Gold
57.
Les
Okay.
Paul. Yeah, very close. And I picked that up for $850 when I was about 17. And I almost sold that about 30 years ago when I was between jobs and didn't really know what was going to happen next. Yeah. And I'm so glad I didn't. It's still with me, and it looks like it's been rode hard and put away wet its whole life, because it has. It looks like Keith Richards' visage. It's like all like weather checked and felt rash in the back, but it's my baby. It's my number one. And
I'm sure it's got as many stories as Keith as well, that guitar,
If only it could talk. I mean, I have to plug it in to make it talk, but yeah.
Absolutely. With these guitars, I mean, yeah, like you mentioned there, like if it's a certain year, it can be up to like $1 million. We've seen that go. If there's some, some of yours would certainly be in there with all the heritage it's got, as well as the being from that golden era. What for you is the mojo in these instruments? What is that extra sort of couple of percent that makes such a difference between sometimes a new instrument and something like that from that golden era?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. A lot of people just think, oh, that's just bull. It's something you guys are making up to make your stable more valuable. But the truth is that you can A/B these things. You can compare these things, a new reissue, highest end custom shop reissue, to a real 59 Sunburst. And I guarantee you'll know the difference. And some of the differences quickly for me might lie in the fact that when they were putting these guitars together in the 50s and early 60s till about 65, they were using old growth wood, old mahogany, old maple from like Vermont and the upper East Coast.
And when you say old, we're talking like over 100 years, maybe 200 years.
Yeah, 50 to 100-year-old wood before they start building the guitar. So now it's another 70 years older than that, or 60 years older than that. And a wood takes on another characteristic when it's been around a long time. As you know, it begins to sort of dry out more. That dryness, the sort of letting go of inherent moisture will give you more resonance. Water would slow a vibration down. Lack of water would allow more conductivity of sound through an instrument. So a lot of people just think that's hoodoo. And I'm here to tell you it isn't. And it really matter.
Yeah.
And now the custom shop will take new wood, and maybe they farmed this wood somewhere in the Honduras, and they put it in an oven and slowly sort of try to dry it out that way and sort of imitate what happened naturally with these old guitars that were built with old wood back then.
Yeah, no, for sure. And of course, recently you've done some fantastic work with Gibson on reissues of your classic instruments. Now, obviously, the technology's got to that stage where you feel proud enough to put your name on something like that. So just talk a little bit about that, because obviously Gibson have had their ups and downs and what have you. Right now, they seem to be in a fantastic place. What was it that was the sort of defining factor that made you feel like, yeah, this is good enough for me to put my name on this?
Well, I mean, first of all, you feel really lucky and honored that, a company like Gibson would come to you and ask you if you wanted to do a limited run of signature models. It's like, I'm not the most famous guy on the planet, so I felt really lucky in that. And I had a guy named Vic Duprat, who's a big sort of sunburst specialist and collector, and knows just about every sunburst that's ever circulated and written books about it. And a guy at Gibson Custom named Philip Wharton. And the two of them had been working on some guitars for Vic, similar signature model things. And they came to me and said, what would you like to do? Would you like to do something? I said, I'd love to. And they said, well, we're thinking about a gold top like your old gold top. And I thought, and I went, that's cool, but there's a lot of reissue custom shop gold tops out there, from Dickie Betts to this guy to that guy. There's just a lot of them out there. I said, I also been loving playing old SGs. And they said, okay, well, what would you have in mind? And when we thought about it on the first of the two signature models, you think, how is this going to be different? And I thought, well, I'd like to do a finish that's not readily available. I don't want a white one or a cherry red one. And I was hanging out with Abe Laboriel Jr., the drummer from Paul McCartney's band,
Sure.
and all over a lot of my material, including lots on the new album. And he said, Brian, what about your 65 Epiphone Casino in Silver Fox? Silver Fox is a finish that Epiphone used to shoot. Gibson never shot it, but Epiphone is a Gibson affiliate under that umbrella. And it's this beautiful, as you know, but maybe your viewers don't know, it's basically a see-through, it's black where you can see the grain. The grain has a filler in it. And then it's been coated with a clear coat. The clear coat goes yellow, meaning later the grain looks green. It's just what happens to it. So it didn't start out green, but it ends up looking like green fur on a black dog. It's so wild.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And so I came to Gibson and said, how about Silver Fox with a white guard and a white truss cover, like a little tuxedo thing? They went, oh, that's cool. Then they had to learn how to shoot this color because they hadn't done it since Epiphone did it in the 60s. And now it's a fairly standard thing for Epiphone to shoot. But yeah, so we worked on that, and then we worked on some other little tricky ideas on it. And they were a blast to collaborate with. Philip Wharton was just so helpful and so cool. The whole Gibson Custom shop, and they made them in Nashville, and there they are. They're out there, and every once in a while they'll come up for sale as a pre-owned, and they're pretty desirable.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Incredible instruments. Could we see another collaboration down the line?
Well, we did a second one, which was a sort of a souped up SG Junior.
Yeah.
You remember the Gibson Ebony block?
Absolutely, no killer.
On 62 SGs and a few other guitars. Well, we put that on a White Fox, we called it, finish, which was a see-through white with grain, ebony block, single P90 with block inlays, just all sorts of guitar nerdy coolness. And a bound neck and a hidden dummy coil pickup for noise canceling. It's just a killer guitar, and I'll be
Oh
bringing
yeah, no.
that out next time as well.
Oh, beautiful! That's fantastic to hear. Just taking things right back to well, close to the beginning, if you don't mind, just for a little bit. Working with Etta James, obviously, you've been asked so much about that over the years, and you've described yourself as a man who's won the lottery twice. I mean, I would say even more than that, but of course, to be this lucky, you need to put in the hard work to be able to do something when the luck strikes. Of course, what was the sort of defining factor you feel of because it can't just be right place, right time. What was some of that hard work that you put in early on that made you ready when opportunity struck, that you were ready to take the call?
Yeah, I guess for me, it's just really loving music and desiring it from the bottom of my soul. I had a feeling that I belonged somewhere in the middle of this business, somewhere in there. And I wasn't a guy who would take solos from Jeff Beck or Peter Green and learn them note for note, but I would definitely absorb what made them special to me. And that was a sense of humor, a sense of danger, a sense of sort of thoughtfulness and space and tone. I've never been like shredder dude kind of guy. I'm more of that guy, Jeff Beck, Peter Green, that was early Eric, stuff like that. Very typical boomer music love. But I just think for me, it was dedication. And I came home every day and just adored my guitar. It was on the bed next to me, my early Les Paul. And it was really desire and passion. It's really it. If you're passionate about one thing or another, just do it and don't listen to people saying, hey, the chances of you getting that, that's ridiculous. I mean, can you imagine me going to my classmates in the 7th grade and said, one day I'm going to play with Paul McCartney? They would have punched me out. You can't say that, but you can feel that inside and say, might not happen, but that's what I would like.
Absolutely. And someone's got to get the gig,
and play towards that. But it's back to your bringing up Etta, it's almost more unusual that I would have spent 15 and 25 then years later with Etta James as a white kid from Glendale with this legend of rhythm and blues. It's almost more unusual that I would get that than it is to be with Paul McCartney, but I'll take them both. And the truth is that it took all of that time with Etta James as a little greenhorn who didn't know what the hell I was doing to be prepared to be maybe the right guy for Paul so many years later,
Absolutely.
And that was like me lugging my own gear, me setting up my own gear with Etta, like lugging it up there in my car, sticking up into the back seat with my knee, doing that night after night after night. I didn't have a tech with Etta James. It was me. So, I mean, all of that stuff just helps give you a soulfulness at the bottom of your gut,
Absolutely.
So I don't know, just felt like I wanted it and I worked hard.
And just reflecting a little bit on that first record you did with her, I mean, the fact that it was still under the Chess Records contract, very, very special, obviously, to be in those studios and working with those guys. Just reflect a little bit on that experience. What were some of the surprising factors? And it must have been a big learning curve.
It was a big learning curve. And first of all, I had this experience quite a few times with Etta. There she is on Chess Records, this Chess Platinum record called Etta is Better. And we recorded it in a Chess studio in Fort Lee, New Jersey. We got a hotel a couple miles away in a rental car. And it was just she and I there. Maybe her husband, Sam, was there at the time, some of the time. And I walked into the studio, an 18-year-old blonde kid from the West Coast with hair down to here, white as a ghost. And I was, of course, the only white guy in the room. And the studio was filled with seasoned vets who tolerated me. I would put it that way. And I played alongside them, and and it's interesting to be, feel what it feels like to be in a minority. And Etta, kindly supported me being there. She fought for me to be on that record, and I'm on that record. And that's from the very first, maybe the second year of us being, of me working with her, maybe 1976, 75.
Oh,
I got with her in 74, met her in 73. It was all very tight.
Incredible. It's something to, the fact that just being on there is something to be proud of, but it's such a great record and great performances from yourself, of course. Fast forward into the Super Bowl. How do you prepare for that? I mean, to be playing on the Super Bowl to begin with, no matter who it was, mega pressure, so many eyes on you. I mean, you seem like the type of guy that's like, bring it on, like you get safe hands. But then combining that with a Beatle, how does your mind cope with that?
Yeah, that's really interesting, man. Thank you for picking up on that. But the truth is that was my audition with Paul McCartney, playing one song before the national anthem on the 2002 Super Bowl. We later did the halftime show a couple of years later, but that was my audition. And I'll tell this story as quick as I can, but I was celebrating a birthday at a restaurant. Michael DeBar was there, a couple of other friends, and Abe Laboriel and his longtime partner, Suzanne, were there. And I knew that Abe had just finished recording with Paul, and I was so excited for him. I was just like, oh my God, let me shake your hand, because Paul shook your hand. And, I'm a bit of a fan, And Abe was so proud of the record. And I said, well, what's going to happen? Are you guys going to record? Are you guys going to tour? And he goes, yeah. And I said, well, wait, who's going to play guitar while he's playing bass, and then switch to bass when he's playing guitar or piano or whatever? He goes, good question. We're looking for a guitar player who plays a bit of bass. And I went, I'd love a shot at that. And I put my hand up, which is not like me. My usual thing would be, Abe's my buddy. He knows where to find me. Yeah. He knows right where to find me, because I'd be good for that. That's kind of my usual MO. But this time I excitedly stuck my hand in the air and said, I'd love a shot at that, right out loud. He says, oh, that would be cool. And I didn't really know, but he put my name forward to Paul's producer, David Kahn. And I was one of, I think, 4 guitar player, bass players whose name was put forward. I got a call the next day from David Kahn introducing himself. And I'm like, I'm a fan already. I mean, he produced the Bangles and a bunch of big records, and Pearl Harbor and the Explosions, some punk rock. And he said, can you get down to my office in a half hour to meet with me? I just want to talk to you a little bit about this idea, And I go, I can't get there in a half hour, but can I get there in an hour? And that wasn't because I couldn't. It's because my adrenaline had shot up to here and I couldn't handle it. I needed to calm down a little bit. So then I drove down there, met him in an hour, and sat there on the couch, played a little bass. He handed me a guitar, played a little guitar, just talking. Not playing the records, not auditioning, really just hanging. And at the end of about 45 minutes, he goes, I have a really good feeling about this. But you're not the only name, and it's not up to me. I'm going to just put your name forward. And I got a call the next day from Paul's people saying, can you be on a plane to come to New Orleans tomorrow? And that's how fast it happened. I met Paul a day after that, which was, I think, a Friday. And then we did the Super Bowl Sunday live, my audition, in front of, 7 billion people or something.
Unbelievable. And for Paul's music, what was the first track you played together?
That was that one that we played on the Super Bowl called Freedom, his Driving Rain album. Incredible. And fast forward a couple of years later, you get to work on an album with him, and you're actually creating that music together. What is something surprising about that? What was surprising for yourself, learning and working with Paul in that sense? Or was there anything surprising, or was it just what you would expect with working with Paul McCartney? Well, the first album I did with him was, was it? I think it was Chaos and Creation.
Yep.
And we were in a studio, Rack Studio, in St. John's Wood area in London.
Sure.
And that was with Nigel producing, and it was just the band. And it was surprising, a little chaotic, a little crazy. We could feel the producer was wanting to make it more of his own sound, his version of what Paul McCartney is. And there was, a little bit of tension around the recording. We were all very new. I think the whole band was like trying to sort of impress and prove ourselves. But and then right after that, we were working on Memory Almost Full with David Kahn, now over at Abbey Road in the room. And that's overwhelming. You're in the big room, Studio 2 at Abbey Road, and there's that famous iconic stairwell going up to the control room.
Absolutely.
And there's the linoleum walls, and there's the gobos that have been there since Love Me Do, and the microphone.
The Lady Madonna piano
Mills,
in the corner.
and the Mrs. Mills piano and everything else. It's all still in the room. And so that was very intoxicating. And that was a lovely experience. We had a great time.
Incredible.
And then, since then, I guess I've done about 3 additional albums with him, as well as all the live DVD and, stuff like that, of course.
Absolutely. And when you're playing with Paul, one of Paul's shows, obviously there's such an incredible solo back catalogue, there's Wings stuff, but a lot of Beatles, obviously, a lot of Beatles factors in. And it's really important to make sure that the sound of that has that authentic vibe. Obviously, Paul's voice is insanely distinctive, but, you can still get that music wrong, like we haven't seen it because he always picks the best people. But what are some of the challenges in making, the Beatles music seem very authentic in a live setting?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, really, Jonathan, it was like he got a band of guys who honor the music, love the music, and on each of our instruments, each of our roles, we've taken from those records the thing that are essential hooks to us, whether it's a little anomaly where the bass does something entirely different, the second chorus than the first. I'll remember that because to me, when I was a kid, that was a hook. It was like, here comes that weird thing.
That's amazing.
I don't know if anybody else notices that. It doesn't really matter. I'm doing it because of a reverence for the source material, and those are definitive recordings. And so I guess each one of the band members does their best to sort of honor those parts. But then on top of that, Paul is very real, and we're playing real music with real people on stage. We're not playing along to tracks. So if Paul wants to play the piano part a little different or throw in some new bass licks on an old Beatles song, then it kind of sets a tone for us to be able to play a little bit too. Not much. He'll let you know if you've gone too far. And but he's a great leader, and he sets a great musical tone, and it's very much alive. It's alive, live music. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
living thing.
It's beautiful to hear that you're all coming from something that's moved you, because ultimately that's what you're wanting from the audience or someone listening, is to be moved by the music. So of course it's got to feel it from yourself. Just one more thing on Paul, because obviously all these years working with him, and I don't know what kind of guy he is in terms of like advice or whatever. He seems amazing, of course, and I'm sure he's a lovely bloke. But has he given you any particular advice over the years as a musician, that's something in particular that's really just struck a chord for you?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, he really lets all of us be, and he hired us because he likes what each of us do, and he's a very natural guy, but he's also an arranger and a producer. And he's also really good at every instrument in the band, and he could play any of our parts if only he could play all of them at once. Really, he could be the guy with the guitar and the bass drum and the hi-hat on his on his shoulder. But I think the most he's ever said in the studio, I remember one time I was playing bass and he was playing acoustic guitar, and he just said, you could throw in an octave here or there, like that. That would be cool, because I was sort of staying on the tonic. And so he was just encouraging me to be playful in terms of spreading out the tonality, like little octave here and there. On guitar, I mean, the most you'll hear from him really is to keep it simple. And he'll say that to everyone in the band. Keep it simple. and just play with love. And another thing I pick up from him, not so much something he said directly, is in the studio, he wants to hear the intention that you're playing with, not the part. He wants to hear intention, like leaning forward just a little bit and being very awake in any part you're playing. It's just like, exactly. That's kind of what's missing in a lot of producer built records, is one guy in the studio building up his own track. It's missing that X factor of corresponding and responding to the guy next to you. So it's two things. It's leaning forward and playing with an intention. This is what I mean. I'm really happy, or I'm really kind of raging, or whatever that intention is. Push that forward in your performance and make it sound new and alive every time you do it. That's such a trip. And it's a hard thing to just tell somebody. It's more of a learned, oh, I see what you mean. Like, you just want to hear some guy leaning back in his chair playing a studio part. He just doesn't move him. It could be brilliant, but it's not interesting to him.
Oh, unbelievable. Just getting back to My Town. Obviously, we're hearing this fantastic record. We can all listen to it at home. When are we going to get to hear these tracks played live over here in the UK?
That's a good question. Well,
because I want My Town in my town, which is London, by the way.
That would be so fun. Well, where are you? Where are you?
I'm in London. I'm in central London. So at least a London show, please. I think that's got to happen.
That would be so fun. Like, just a cool pub gig. That would be awesome.
Oh, I'm sure it could be a little bigger than that. If you want it to be a pub gig, sure, it could be, I'm sure, whatever you want. But one thing I would want to be doing as well, of course, is when you do get over to the UK, we'll keep an eye on the socials and when you announce something like that. But we could maybe come and take a look at the live rig that you decide to bring over here to the UK, because I'm sure that'll be an absolute blast as well.
Yeah, that would be fun. A little rig rundown, as they say. Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, look, congratulations on My Town. Fantastic record. As I said, if everyone keeps an eye on the socials for all the links and the downloads and the streaming and however they want to purchase it, I guess available on vinyl, CD, all the regular formats. Yeah.
All of the formats. Yeah. And I think from my website, we're offering it signed, and we're even offering personalized signed. So there's a few levels of engagement depending on what you're into. But yeah, just come and check out the music. That's the main thing.
Absolutely, Brian. Absolute pleasure to chat with you today. I could chat to you for hours, and hopefully we'll do a part 2 sometime.
Same here, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.
You too.